recently, Morning Joe had a program in which they were trying to talk about why would Trump make that silly statement about NATO the very week that you would think he had Biden on the ropes, because Biden's mental acuity was in question. First of all, the report the real report that was ill done by her said that, the old man doesn't remember too well. He couldn't even remember his son's death, the day that his son died, etc. Of course, it was silly, right? But he said it. And when Biden goes out to refute it in a press conference, he made a mistake and called Egypt Mexico. So that was left in the ethos for everybody to go ahead and complain about and talk about all these things that Biden is mentally something wrong or whatever. But then Trump comes out and make a silly statement. If NATO doesn't pay their bills, I told one of the big countries, if you don't pay your bills, we won't defend you against Russia. And it's like, Russia, do whatever the hell you want to do with them. That was big news internationally, right? But that is what, as Joe Scarborough would say, Morning Joe would say, that's what he wanted. And why did he want that? Let's listen to Joe, this long narrative, and then we'll take it on the other side. This is one of the best from Joe. Check it out.
Well, not only what he's talking about, but again, the geopolitical implications of the Republican Party completely folding on a security structure that created the American century following World War II, that created the strongest economy in the history of the world, that created the strongest military force in the history of the world. And here we are all these years later. I know Trump, Republicans like to trash the country. They do. Extreme MAGA, Trump. They fly their flags upside down, talk about how horrible things are, they insult our men and women in uniform, and talk about how weak and woke the United States military is, despite the fact our military is stronger relative to the rest of the world than it has been since 1945. And yet the attacks keep coming. And they call Joe Biden a socialist. He's a Marxist. They're such idiots. He's a communist. Well, baby, if this is how communism works for the stock market, there are a lot of billionaires. There are a lot of millionaires who are voting for Donald Trump, calling Joe Biden a socialist, that are making millions of dollars every single day, because the stock market is soaring. The economy is doing better than ever before. Our jobs numbers are better than they've ever been. They're better than anywhere else in the world. Our inflation numbers, more inflation numbers come out today. We're doing better, tamping down inflation post-COVID than any major industrial power in the world. We are pounding China's economy. I get so sick and tired. I said it on this air starting in 2007. People would come on whining about, China's going to overtake us. America's so weak. Bullshit. I'm so tired of people trashing America. I'm so tired of it. I've heard it my entire life. I heard it in the late 1980s. It was Japan that was going to take America over, that was going to turn America into Japan's granary, because we were behind on computer chips. And then Intel said, hold my beer. And we crushed them. We crushed them economically. Japan, an ally, but Japan, who was going to turn America into its granary, according to a member of its parliament, they went into a lost decade. America's economy grew. It's continued to grow. We heard the same thing about China. Our economy is crushing China's economy right now. Did you know that? And California, which is supposed to be such a basket case, fourth largest GDP in the world. Russia, which we got Republicans saying they want our military to be more like, they have collapsed. They've been destroyed. This Ukraine war has set them back 20 years militarily. They've got a GDP now smaller than the size of Texas. And yet the whining continues. The hatred for America continues from the extreme MAGA Trumpers. Why? Why do they hate America? Why? Why do they fly their flags upside down? Biden is socialist? Oh, don't tell traders on Wall Street that. Don't tell industrial nations across the world who look at our numbers and say, how are they doing that? How is America? How does America continue to thrive even in the hardest of times? There are entire news networks that are dedicated to spreading the lie that America is weak, dedicated to spreading the lie that the United States military is not the strongest in the world. Those are lies. Militarily, we're more powerful than we've been since World War II. Economically, we're more powerful than all of our allies and enemies. Culturally, that soft power thing that makes such a difference, never been bigger, never been stronger in the world than we are right now. And yet one sick, diseased man who so desperately wants to get into the White House that he admits that he wants the economy to crash. And he says, let's keep the southern border in chaos for another year. And says, you can blame me. Okay, Donald, I'm blaming you. I'm blaming you because we had a solution for the southern border. You said no. You said no. We want the fentanyl. Donald Trump says, keep the fentanyl flooding in. Keep the fentanyl flooding in for another year. Keep the illegal immigrants flooding in for another year. Keep the humanitarian crisis growing for another year and making the lives of people who live on the border hell, a living hell. Oh, and by the way, Donald Trump tells our border patrol, the men and women who put their lives on the line every day and really are fighting an unwinnable battle right now because they're not getting the resources they need from politicians in Washington, D.C. They beg Republicans to pass this bill. Republicans, what do they tell them? Drop dead because they want chaos on the southern border. They want fentanyl flooding in across the southern border. They want illegal immigrants flooding in across the southern border. They don't want the problem fixed. There's nothing patriotic about that. That's sick. I've got to say, I served in Congress long enough to be able to say this. This group of extreme House MAGA Republicans are the most unpatriotic I have seen in a long, long time. I say that as a small government conservative. And you know, Donald Trump, why did Donald Trump, think about this, why did Donald Trump say this outrageous thing about NATO and about Putin during a news cycle, the worst news cycle of the Biden White House's time, like over the past 3 years? Why did he do that? Well, he wanted to change the conversation to that because Donald Trump understands if the conversation stays on Joe Biden's age and Joe Biden's memory, Donald Trump understands at the end of the day, he loses because that whole strongman act that this failed reality host puts on every day, that strongman act, it collapses when you look at the guy stumbling on stage. He can't even remember who the president of the United States is, can't even remember who the Speaker of the House is, gets dates confused.
Yep. I mean, that's Donald Trump for you. I mean, and again, that is a fear, right? That the scrutiny turns around. I don't think to be honest, I don't think we have to worry too much about the media ever scrutinizing Trump. The media only scrutinizes the Democrats and progressives, unlike what they do with Republicans. But we'll see. Maybe they'll wake up again. Maybe they will. Maybe they will not.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number one, subscribe to our channel, and number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.